Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the Amira Center North Side and Fight Night number 5. I'm Dave LeBlanc along with Aubrey McLeod. I'll be bringing you the boxing matches this evening, and it's going to be a great night of boxing. First of all, Aubrey, welcome to the broadcast, and while we're announcing the first fighters, while Blake Fenley, the announcer, is going through his routine, just give us a little bit about your background, and especially amateur boxing.
Okay, thanks, Dave. My amateur background started in the early 90s when my son started boxing in Kingston, Ontario. I got involved with the club and started helping out there, and got posted. I was in the military at the time. We got posted to Gagetown, so I went to Fredericton and started helping out at the club there, and within a couple of years, the gentleman that owned the club there asked me to take over. So I ran the club in Fredericton for a few years and decided I hadn't had enough punishment, so I opened up a second club. Ran 2 gyms in Fredericton, one in Fredericton, one in Normoncto for quite a few years. Had a lot of fighters come through over the years, a few Canadian champions, and more recently I've gotten involved with the pros.
Is there an upswing in amateur boxing right now, or just where is it?
I think there's a bit of an upswing, a bit of a revival happening right now. It was a little quiet for a few years not that long ago. There's more clubs opening now, and there's more fight shows, so I think that's a pretty good indication that things are starting to pick up again, and that makes us all happy.
Was there a bit of a drop when MMA came in as far as the interest in amateur boxing?
My theory on that was always the same, and I think I've been somewhat proven right. I find that MMA took more fans away from professional wrestling than it did from boxing. I always thought that fight fans that are looking to see real fighting are going to like both MMA and boxing, and there seems to be a lot more crossover. I've trained a lot of MMA guys over the years, and they're all boxing fans as well. So I don't see it being that competitive against each other right now. Professional wrestling seems to have lost a few fans because MMA taught them that it's not as real as it looks.
One thing that you and I were talking about earlier, just before we come on the air, and I guess it's in amateur boxing, it probably we're talking about the expense of the game, but especially in amateur boxing, because really, I mean, except for shows like this, I mean, it's a lot of people doing a lot of work behind the scenes to keep the clubs going. Absolutely,
the coaches and volunteers at the boxing clubs are just some of the best people I've ever met in my life. They work tirelessly, hours and hours and hours. And the reward is always seeing the kids develop as people, develop as athletes. The thanks of the parents. Most kids that get into a sport that requires so much discipline, that it improves the other part of their life too. Their schoolwork gets better. Grades tend to go up. Socially, they seem to do better because their confidence is higher. So that's your payback as a coach and a volunteer at the local clubs. Tremendous amount of work, and it often costs the coaches and volunteers a lot of money out of their own pocket, but it's well worth it. It's such a great feeling seeing these kids do well.
This particular event tonight is sponsored by Tri-Town Communications and Seaside Communications. The first 2 bouts tonight, and interestingly enough for these guys, I mean, some of these guys are going to be nervous tonight fighting in front of a crowd, but especially the first 4 guys.
Absolutely.
It's their first time in the gym. We've got Silas Bellows, who fights out of the Tri-Town Boxing Club, and he's going to be in the blue corner, and Aiden Jessam, Tri-Town as well. These guys are sparring mates probably.
Yep.
And one guy's 11 years old, and the other guy's 8 years old. Bellows is 8 years old. And I'm telling you, I think before the first punch is thrown, they're going to be shaking.
Absolutely. The first fight's always tough. You got to hand it to these kids for having the courage to get up there and get in the ring for the first time, especially at that age. It takes an incredible amount of maturity and self-confidence to be able to do it. So this is going to be great for both kids. They'll leave here no matter how the bout goes. I mean, it's an exhibition, so there's no winner. Well, they're both winners. But when they leave this ring, they're going to be slightly different kids. They're going to be more confident kids, having known, they stepped out in front of all these people to do this.
This boxer is 8 years of age.
Well, while they're being introduced, one thing that strikes me about this whole event, every time I get involved in the broadcasting of this amateur boxing, especially, is that when I see the headgear on and the little larger gloves, right, it's quite obvious, and especially with the officials that are ringside and with the doctors, the utmost thing that everybody's thinking about is hope they have a good time and that they're being safe.
Absolutely. Amateur boxing, there was a study done by, I think it was McMaster University back in the late 90s, and it studied rates of concussion amongst 6 sports, and it was amateur boxing, not pro, baseball, hockey, football, rugby, and basketball. And the only sport that had less concussions than amateur boxing was baseball. So it goes to show that they're really looking after the kids. I mean, professional game is a little more risk, but amateur boxing is it may be kids hitting each other and at times trying to hit each other hard, but between the equipment, the training of the referees, the training of the doctors and the coaches, the kids aren't left in there to get repetitively hit hard. So they're really looking after them.
Our first bout is underway, Aubrey, and it's Silas Bellows again. He's in the blue corner against Adam Jessom in the red corner. They're both Tri-Town Boxing Club boxers. The young guys, one guy's 11, the other guy's 3 years younger and 8 years old, and that's Bellows.
Hard to tell the difference between them in age, isn't it? By looking at them, they're you can see muscle definition in both of them, and at 8 years old, that's quite a thing. That obviously that kid's been working hard.
At this level, you see, it's Jessom in the red corner. Is Jessom got a jab in there, and they're both swinging away. But is this age where they really learn the fundamentals?
Absolutely, yeah. They soak up everything so well at this age. They're such sponges. They listen to the coaching so well. Not saying that older kids don't, but there's more distractions, I think, for kids in their later teens. These kids are it's such a pleasure to coach, such a pleasure to work with. They listen so well, and if most of them, if their coach told them to do a backflip at the end of each round, they'd probably try to do it. So great round. Both kids got in some good shots there.
And these guys only fight what, 1 minute rounds, correct?
1 minute rounds at this age, yeah.
It's a long 1 minute round.
It's amazing. I've had guys in the gym that are marathon runners and things like that, and they come in when they start sparring, they think, well, I'm in tremendous shape. This is going to be pretty easy. And I always tell them the same thing. You probably shouldn't say that until you've done it. And at the end of 3 rounds, people in even the most extreme sports are spent. And a lot of that's nerves and not breathing properly while you're in there. But it's very tiring.
What's interesting to see in this bout, and I think it's great, and we'll try to get her name a little bit later on, but the referee is a young lady.
Yeah, I don't know her.
And I think that's great.
Yeah.
I always thought it was like in the certain stages of the game. I'm not sure if I agree with that at the pro level when the women are fighting, but I'm not trying to be chauvinistic. It's just that's my opinion. But but it was great to see the younger women boxing at the amateur level.
Yes, yeah. Not a lot of girls in Nova Scotia boxing right now. A few down around Halifax, but Ontario, Quebec, and New Brunswick have quite a few girls competing, and it seems to be in a bit of a lull right now for nationwide for girls. It's a little less numbers than what I'm used to seeing, but mostly I trained a girl. She was 2-time Canadian champion. She went on to do tremendous things in life. University degrees and tremendous job. She's a referee as well. These kids are giving it all in there, aren't they?
They're trading leather.
Yeah, you wouldn't think they were friends and sparring partners, but putting on quite a display.
Really, not a lot to pick from between Bellows and Jessom at this point.
No, Jessom's got the longer jab, and he seems to be getting it in there quite a bit more. But both kids are getting their licks in, that's for sure.
There's 10 seconds left in this round.
Oh, nice right hand. Wow, great round.
I think Jessom's from the north side, and Bellows lives in the East Bay area.
Okay.
Fought both out of the Tri-Town Boxing Club.
Bellows for an 8-year-old. I can't get over the muscle definition in his shoulders and things for 8 years old. It's pretty incredible.
Well, these
he's throwing to hurt. He's not going easy. I guess it's easy when you're the younger kid. Yeah. He's 3 years younger. I guess he feels pretty confident in letting his hands go a little bit.
These guys do any weight work at that age?
Usually not, no. But they'll do a lot of core strengthening. It's all body weight stuff they mostly do. even the older ages, most fighters generally work with their own body weight, so they don't put on too much mass or weight, because you still have to make weight in your weight class. So, but they do a lot of plyometric stuff and a lot of push-ups and a lot of bag work and mitt work and sparring. So
this is the final round between Silas Bellows, he's in the blue corner, and Aiden Jessam in the red corner. We've seen some great action here so far with these two young guys. Their first bouts, and this is called a fun bout, as is the next bout here this evening. But don't tell them that.
Oh, young Bellows is swinging for the fences. Jessam's got the good jab, but Bellows is giving it everything. Silas'
grandfather, Kenny, is here tonight. Ken Bellows. He had some health issues lately, but he's feeling a lot better. I was talking to him on the way in, and he's really looking forward to be here tonight to see his grandson in the ring for his first time.
He's going to be proud. This is quite a performance for an 8-year-old kid, Jay. Both these guys are very, very poised, very composed. Like sometimes all of your training goes out the window when you get in there for your first fight. You're thinking a little bit too much about the crowd, but these guys are keeping their hands up pretty good. Bellows is dropping that right hand a little bit, but great fight, a great way to start the night. Look at Bellows walking back to the corner. That's a confident kid right there.
I'll tell you one thing and tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. They may have a lot more fights in their amateur career. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll only have 1 or 2 more, but they'll always remember the first one.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And these kids, like a lot of kids start boxing because of bullying and things like that, and they want to learn how to defend themselves. And the amazing thing that happens is they learn how to fight, but they never have to. And most of that is because their own self-confidence comes up enough through the sport that they don't feel like they have to anyway. They understand that, a bully's usually not a super strong kid that could kick their butt anyway. They usually figure out pretty quick that most bullies are running their mouths because that's all they have is a mouth. So all the kids I ever trained, my young fellow was the same thing. He started boxing, and partially because he wanted to avoid bullying and stuff, but you just don't get in a lot of fights after you start a sport like this, because kids don't want to mess with you, for one thing, and the other thing is you just carry yourself with so much more confidence.
Yeah, the confidence is a big thing. And presenting the medals to the young guys actually is Silas Bellows' dad, Scott. So
nice.
That's another thing. Same as hockey, I guess, baseball, any other sport at the young levels, is that when the parents buy in, they're part of it, things get a lot easier for everybody.
Absolutely. I've had all kinds of parents bringing kids in the gyms over the years that I've coached at and run, and most try to get involved, especially when their kids are younger, and help out a lot. They help with the fundraising and things like that. And a lot of them, I've seen a ton of, especially dads, but a few moms decide, well, my kid wants to box, so I'm going to train with him and I'm going to box too. And some of them even go on to have fights. So it can be quite a family affair.
So bout number 1 is in the books here in this fight night number 5 here at the Emira Center Northside, sponsored by Tri-Town Boxing and Seaside Communications. Dave LeBlanc along with Aubrey McLeod. And coming up in our second fight, it's Takari Howe from the Citadel Boxing Clubs in Halifax and Jake McDonald out of St. John, New Brunswick. And this is another fun bout.
Yep. Young Howe from Citadel. Citadel's a very, very famous club. Wayne Gordon runs it now. His dad, Taylor Gordon, had run it for years, and both are multiple-time Olympic coaches. Wayne fought at the Olympics. So there's always a pedigree with those guys that they know they're training with the best, and they usually bring in the ring. They have a lot of good athletes come into that gym.
I guess the other claim to fame for Wayne Gordon is to be in the corner for Russell Crowe and
absolutely, yeah.
And the Cinderella Man.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough. He was working with Angelo Dundee, training Russell Crowe for that movie, and I was at Nationals with a couple of my fighters, and Wayne brought Angelo Dundee to Nationals for a couple days. Wonderful man, funny as heck. I had breakfast with him one morning, and he kept us in stitches the whole time. So it was quite an experience, and the kids at Nationals really got a big kick. Angelo Dundee, of course, trained Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, Sugar Ray Leonard, a lot of greats. So
An
real
iconic
pleasure to
game
be
in the
here.
sport of boxing.
100%.
So the boxers are in the ring, and the boxers look like they're juiced up, ready to go.
They're pretty excited.
It's also a fun box. It's 3 rounds of boxing, 1 minute per round. Now the participants.
So again, in the red corner is going to be Takari Howe from the Citadel Boxing Club. In the blue corner, Jake McDonald.
Jake Brenton, let's make him feel at home here.
This is a relatively new club in St. John, New Brunswick that these kids are coming from. It's only been open a little under 2 years, I believe. East Coast Boxing and Performance. So interesting to see. New clubs it takes a little while because you don't have a lot of experienced fighters in your gym at first for spurring. So sometimes it takes a couple of years for the kids to really be very competitive. But I mean, there's been gyms. I know Jim Maloney and Bridget Stevens. Bridget being from Escazone opened up a gym in Halifax. They've got kids that are fighting at the national level in just under 2 years. So there's some real success stories there too. I spoke to the coach from East Coast earlier today, and very smart, switched-on guy. So I expect his kids to be respectful and be very competitive in this fight. Even though it's an exhibition, you're going to see the excitement come out, and they're going to start swinging, I think.
The referee for this match is Brad Ross, formerly of Sydney, and had a lot to do with the amateur boxing in Cape Breton, especially. And the time he was here, there was a resurgence.
Yeah, Brad did a wonderful job here. He's got his own gym in Halifax now, and they're doing great there too. Heavily involved in the sport, president of Boxing Nova Scotia, referee, coach. So Brad puts a lot of time in it for the kids.
So does the bell rang to carry out Citadel right across the ring. He wasn't wasting any time. He's getting his money's worth in this minute.
He sure is. And young Jake McDonald is, I'm seeing some stuff that you don't normally see from kids this age. He's leaving at angles a lot of the time. He's not coming straight in and straight back. He's throwing his punches and stepping to the side. So nice to see. That's kind of veteran stuff right there. And Takari likes to let the leather go. He's trying to throw the hard shots. Chin's a little high in the air. Hopefully you start getting that down. Oh, some hot dogging going on there now.
Between the two of them.
Yeah.
And you know something? The fans picked up on that right away.
Yeah, they sure did.
Yeah. You know, it's amazing that even though it's how many years since how many years since he had the big, his first boxing match, Muhammad Ali, it still has its effect today with the hands down by the side. Well, of course, Sugar Ray Leonard.
Yeah. Roy Jones putting his hands behind his back. And
yeah.
I think it was Glenn Catley he was fighting in that fight. But yeah, there's not a lot of room for showboating in boxing, but you'll still see it from time to time. And sometimes it's just a confidence thing. Sometimes kids feel like they need to to do that a little bit to build their own confidence, not necessarily to try to take confidence away from their opponent, but to build themselves up a bit.
I guess, Aubrey, at the higher levels, though, I mean, it's only a fun bout, but when you're boxing and you've only got 3 rounds to make your points, and especially if you're not a knockout guy, you really don't have a lot of time for showboating.
You don't, especially these 1 minute rounds. It's you got to get your points in. The judging system in amateur boxing's changed several times over the last few years. It was for quite a few years we used the computer system with the points generated by pressing the buttons, and now they're using paper judging again. So the punch output has come down a little bit since they went back to the paper judging, because ring generalship and things like that have become more a part of the judging now. So during computer scoring age, there wasn't usually the kid who threw the most punches won the fight. So I'm glad to see it go back to paper.
So watching at home, so you can keep track of the boxers. In the blue corner is Jack McDonald. He's from New Brunswick. Takari Howe from Citadel is in the red corner and wearing the red garb.
Oh, nice right hand. You can see when they land a shot, you can almost see their confidence come up a little bit. And when they take a shot, you can see it go the other way. That's something that you learn to hide that a little bit over more experience. But the younger guys, you usually you usually see it pretty plainly when things start going well. Their confidence comes up a long ways.
I imagine at this level is that for young McDonald and for Howe here is that so you walk into one, you take one on the button, right? I mean, still, when you walk away from that, I mean, chances of getting hurt, or I mean, I imagine some you could get hurt, but really, they take one on the nose, and then he walks away and he says to himself, "That wasn't so bad."
Yeah, exactly, and they get a lot of that in the gym with the sparring anyway. But kids, they always don't understand that it's exactly the same as sparring. Sparring, you wear a little bigger glove. And there's some control there that the coach can tell the stronger kid to back off a little bit, but they learn pretty quick after a couple of bouts that there's not a lot of difference between what they're doing at the gym to what they're doing here, except for all the people cheering. Some kids tell me they don't hear a thing from the crowd. They don't hear anything when they're in there. All they see is their opponent, and some of them can quote you everything that every one of their friends yelled out. So.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. The final round of the second fun bout tonight, Takari Howe in the red corner from the Citadel Boxing Club in Halifax, and Jake McDonald, or Jake McDonald from St. John, New Brunswick. Rothsay, New Brunswick, just outside St. John.
Yeah. And I think Jake's landed a few more shots. He's got a little more reach, and Takari's chin's a little bit in the air, but if this was being scored, it would be a very, very close bout.
I think his coach, Takari's coaches, will be telling him after this one, I think less time spent on the putting the arms up in the hot dog, and then more time on fundamentals. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, and he'll have to work on getting his chin down over time. At this age, not likely to get hurt by having your chin in the air, but it makes every punch that lands, it makes your head go up in the air, and so much more. You look like a Pez dispenser a little bit, so it makes it easier for the judges to think you're celebratory there for an exhibition. Good stuff.
You gotta like him.
Nice to see. Like him. Yeah, he's got a lot of confidence.
Oh yeah. I mean, it is amateur boxing, but it's also entertainment, and the guys that can bring more to the stuff to any sport, I guess. Really, if you're a little flamboyant, it adds a lot.
And for people putting on shows, the kids or even adults that are more fun to watch, they're really going to go out of their way to get them on the bout, so that on their fight card, so they tend to get more experience just because people want to see them fight, so they'll go out of their way to find them an opponent and get them on the card.
Making the presentation of the medals after this match is the manager of the Americenter North Side, Corey Keeping, and for both young guys, just a great job.
As in all of our fun box bouts, both these young men here are winners tonight. Give it up for Takari Howe and Jack McDonald.
All righty, good match between McDonald and Howe. The second fun match of the night.
And they told us young Takari Howe, Takari means warrior. I'm not sure what language that's in, but Takari apparently means warrior, and he showed it tonight.
Who are we to argue with the translation? If he wants warrior, that's what he gets.
I have a hard enough time with English. I'm not going to try to translate any other language. So,
fight night number 5 here at the Americenter North Side. Presented by Tri-Town Boxing and Seaside Communications. Dave LeBlanc along with Aubrey McLeod. And coming up in this next fight, we'll have Riley Snow from Ring 73 in Glace Bay and Jack Matheson. He's a 12-year-old from the Warriors Boxing Club.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The Warriors Boxing Gym is in Dartmouth. Kelsey Fraser's is the head coach there. Kelsey's background was with Gary Johnson and Kirk Johnson. Kirk was a former world title challenger at the heavyweight division. Very, very good fighter, and Kelsey's former coach and Kirk's dad, Gary, very, very good coaches. So his fighters do well. They always look like they're well schooled.
Well, one thing, there's a lot of great boxing areas in Nova Scotia and the Maritimes, but I mean, New Glasgow always had good boxers, but I can think of people like Lawrence Hafey and years ago, and even Bobby Beaton, the famous referee, refereed a lot of bouts. I think he was from the New Glasgow area originally, maybe even Stellarton. But I mean, you think of the Downies in Halifax,
Yeah,
a lot of great fighters, and Chris Clark, you know, a lot of great guys. But then at Cape Breton, of course, we had our own rich history with Tyrone Gardner and Blair Richardson and Ronnie Sampson, and the list goes on and on. I hate to miss anybody once you start naming them.
Yeah, that's
But,
why I don't.
McDougall,
Yeah, that's why I don't use names, because I'll always forget someone. They, I mean, Nova Scotia, especially the Halifax area, but I think that's more population as there's reason. Been quite a few Olympians. Of course, we've had our own Olympians at Cape Breton too. Scotty McIntosh being one that comes to mind.
John Calvin.
A lot of really good fighters. These Ring 73 fighters, a lot of good fighters come out of there too. Kyle Clark.
Correct.
Yeah. And Kyle Cameron McLean coaching in the corner there was a really good fighter. Great with the kids. You should see this guy with the kids. They all think the world of him. I hang out with Kyle once in a while at other shows, watching pro shows and things. And when kids that he knows from the gym see him, they come running up and give him a hug every time. So you know he's a well-liked coach.
He resides in Reserve Mines. Ladies and gentlemen,
that's my old stomping ground, Reserve Mines.
Ryan Snow from Reserve Mines. His favorite boxer is Ryan Garcia. And it fights at Ring 73.
Yeah.
And again, Jack Matheson from the Dartmouth Warriors.
Yeah. His favorite fighter's Gennady Golovkin, which both guys have picked some pretty good ones there. This young Ryan Garcia is just a new kid. I think he's 12-0. But they claim he's got the fastest hands in boxing right now, and he certainly has a lot of confidence. I follow him a bit on social media. He's a flamboyant kind of guy. And of course, Golovkin being the opposite, not very flamboyant, but incredibly talented and powerful.
These guys are fighting in the 100-pound class. This will be 3 rounds of 3 minutes each.
No, it'll be either 2 or 1.5, depending on age and experience. So they're 11 and 12. They might go to 2 minutes on this one.
Snow in the red corner, in the blue again. Matheson from Dartmouth. Matheson looks a little taller, maybe a little bit of advantage in the reach.
Yeah.
Most of these boxers at this level, Aubrey, is it pretty well basic? Is it jab?
Yeah, you don't get into teaching kids this age a lot of really complicated combinations, and boxing's more about principles than it is about what combination you throw anyway. It's the move in your head, it's good hand position, it's being first, it's leaving at angles or coming in at angles, and knowing your range and things like that. And all those things take so much to learn that if you're clouding their abilities or their learning with a whole bunch of 6-7 punch combinations that look fancy, but you don't really get the opportunity to use them in a fight anyway. So most coaches stick to very basic stuff with these kids. And young Riley got the better of that exchange at the end, didn't he?
Well, he was throwing them.
Yeah, that round went back and forth quite a bit, really. Jake landed, seemed to land the majority of the shots in the early part, but Riley came back strong at the end.
Is it what I guess from I've never been an amateur boxer, but when you mentioned what you were talking about, but keeping you don't get into a lot of intricate stuff at this age, but when you learn that stuff, it has to be about muscle memory.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you're out there, it's kind of difficult to remember those things when the guy's throwing punches at you. So it's spending a lot of hours in the gym.
I was talking with some of the fighters earlier on today when they were here for weigh-ins about exactly that. Muscle memory takes 3 to 5 rounds, or 3 to 5,000 repetitions. So you're going to be doing things in your fight that you were doing 4 months ago. You're not going to be doing things that you were doing last week. I just telling the kids, don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to try to remember and overthink things too much. It's more about, it's going to be as soon as you get tired, it comes down to instinct and muscle memory. So, go out there, have some fun, do your best. Win, lose, or draw, it doesn't make any difference. The kids at this age, it's all experience, and they soak everything up. And the coaches, I know Kyle really preaches to his kids that every bout's a learning experience. It's not about It's not about racking up the big record. You don't get paid anyway. You're not going to get paid more for having a better record. Some of the best pros in the world had terrible amateur records, but they used the lessons and they learned well.
Well,
so it's
both.
Jake came out strong early, and Riley in the red is. He doesn't take no guff, does he? Once you land a couple shots on him, he's right back at you. Seems to be looking to try to get on the inside and stay there as much as he can with the taller Matheson.
Well, one thing about the Snow, yeah, you're correct there, Aubrey, in the fact that even though that the Matheson has the longer reach, he seems to be getting inside fairly easily.
Yeah, he's getting inside and he's moving his hands when he's there, so he's doing what his coach is telling him. Young Matheson would be smart to just use that jab a lot and don't step forward off of it, jab 1-2, and just keep his feet moving a little bit and try to keep young Jack Snow on the outside as much as he can.
Now, for those watching at home, where is the scoring area?
The scoring area is everywhere on the front of the body from the waist up, not including the arms. So if you were, I had it explained to me this way. If you were to stand in a dark room and somebody was to shine a flashlight from behind you, from a little ways away, every part of you that's not lit up is a scoring area.
Okay.
So nothing beyond the center line of your body is a scoring area.
I know for these, I can only imagine what. See, I was looking at Riley Snow taking his instructions in the corner.
Yep.
And you're in the middle of a fight, even though this is what the coach has to do. Don't get me wrong. It must be difficult for the boxer to listen to him.
Yeah.
He's thinking about now.
Yeah, it sure is. I've had kids over the years, like some kids that there's kids with ADHD, and the boxing's a really good sport for kids with ADHD. So. But sometimes they're not hearing everything you tell them, and they're kind of looking over to see how their opponent's doing. And I've been giving kids instructions before, and they're sitting there giving me a play-by-play of, oh, his nose is bleeding, or whatever from the other corner. So, but young Riley seemed to be listening pretty intently to Kyle's instructions there. So he's coming out and giving everything he got. Both kids are.
Well, I imagine that'd be one of the first instructions you give them going into the third round. Listen, there's no fourth round.
Exactly, yeah.
If you're going to make any points, it's got to be now. And
and there's no worse feeling for a kid to leave the fight, win, lose, or draw, knowing they hadn't given it everything they had. So you really try to encourage them, especially between that second and third round, just to go out and empty the gas tank. And if they do that, even if they lose, they know they did their best.
Snow got a couple of good right hands in there.
Yeah, he sure did. Coming over the top. Trying to come over the top of that lead hand of Matheson, and he's landing it quite a few times with that overhand right.
And you can hear the fans. Fans are enjoying this.
Yeah. Well, the little guys are fun to watch. They, a lot of people tout the heavyweights and stuff, and they are fun to watch too. But you see so much raw emotion from these kids at this age, and they're busy and they're giving it everything they got, and it's a great feeling knowing they're not getting hurt in there.
One of the things I like about this setting in the amateur boxing is that the ones I've been to, whether I was doing this or just at the games, is to hear the encouragement of the fans after the boxing match.
Yeah.
The fans encourage these guys.
They sure do.
It was a good match.
That was a really good match. Riley landed a huge left hook right near the end there, and you could tell young Matheson. I don't think he was hurt, but he was upset by it. He shook his head a little bit and was upset with himself for letting that land. That's a close fight. It's going to be interesting. I've got it scored for young Riley Snow, but very, very close fight. Very close, and it depends a lot of times on what the judges like. Some judges will see the longer, straighter punches better and be able to score that better. And if that's the case, young Jack Matheson could very well get the decision.
Ladies and gentlemen, into the ring to make the medal presentation.
Great fight, though.
From A&L Seafoods.
And that's another thing you don't forget. Like a lot of these guys you scrap against, of course, even in the schoolyard for that matter, is you respect your opponent, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of these guys remember them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, they sure do. Yeah, I've a lot of times these kids, when they meet up at tournaments, even when they're boxing each other, will end up hanging around with each other all night long, and then they'll win and they'll fight and they'll hang around with each other some more. So there's emotion there, but it's not emotion directed towards your opponent. It's emotion of overcoming the fear in the crowds and wanting to perform your best.
Is that a part of it? Not difficult's not the right word, but is it something you deal with as a coach when you're talking to these young boxers about when say their friends are here watching the matches? You kind of got to forget about them.
Yeah, it's you definitely talk about it as much as you can. And another thing that the coaches tend to do when kids are getting in for their first fight, they'll set up the boxing gym like it's a fight show, and they'll have somebody in refereeing. And young Riley Snow gets the decision. Well deserved. Always fought back hard, even when he took a couple shots from the outside and managed to get back on the inside and land there. I think that was the right call, but it was very, very close. And back to what you were talking about, you try to give them that experience in the gym. You set it up, you have a referee, you have people working the corners, you bring stools in, which normally you don't for sparring, and you'll have the other kids around watching and cheering and things like that, just to get them used to the idea of what the difference is. But yeah, you definitely try to keep their head out of the crowd and as much as they can, and not to worry about if their friends see him take a shot in the face or if their friends see him and maybe even lose a fight. A lot of kids are concerned that their friends will maybe be disappointed in them or make fun of them, and it's never the case. I've never seen that happen, because their friends sitting on the outside, if they're not boxers themselves, are saying, wow, that took a lot of courage to get in there and do that.
Okay, we're going to our next match. Here in fight night number 5, Matt Heffernan from Ring 73 in Glace Bay. He's 11 years old. From Reserve Mines, his favorite boxer, Sugar Ray Leonard, up against Hunter Cassidy from New Brunswick.
Yeah, and Hunter's 12 years old. He's been in the gym for 8 months. He has 1 bout. I think this is Matt Heffernan's first fight.
Our next boxer in the arena, from the red corner, Matt Heffernan.
They're 95-pound class.
Ring 73 has 4 boxers on the show tonight. They got a lot of kids in the gym right now. They've got a few really good coaches here, and since Cameron McLean's come back from out west, he's added programs to what they're doing down there, and doing a fantastic job. He runs a Parkinson's boxing class to help with Parkinson's disease. He's one of the only trained professionals in that in Canada. He went to the States and took the training and brought the program back, and shows some stuff on videos and Facebook and stuff sometimes. How many Parkinson's patients he has there. I think they do two classes a week. They love it. They're smiling. They're having a great time. Their motor skills are improving instead of declining. So great stuff he's doing. Awesome volunteer. The kids love him. The community loves him. So I'm glad to see he's back from out west.
That's a great story. I don't know many people know that story. It's a great story.
Yeah.
People just think about young kids learning to box and amateur boxing, but when you think about that, it's because how many people in the community suffer from Parkinson's?
There seems to be a lot, particularly around Cape Breton. I don't know if it has something to do with the industries that used to be here, or what. Maybe the number isn't higher. Maybe I'm just more aware since talking to Kyle and the program he's been running. But
well, our demographics older here as well.
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah. And Kyle's father-in-law passed away last year from Parkinson's. That's kind of what motivated him to go take the training and start helping other patients. So kudos for him.
So in the red corner, it's Matt Heffernan. In the blue corner is Hunter Cassidy. Heffernan from Reserve Mines. And
again, a shorter kid against a taller kid. Heffernan looking to get on the inside. Cassidy seems to have some strength there. He's throwing some hard shots, eh?
Even though Heffernan's backing him up.
Yeah, he is, yeah. And I think he's just getting on his chest. Yeah, I think he knows he's got to be on the inside because he's against a taller kid. So trying to do the smart thing here, trying to come over the top from the inside too. That can be a pretty good weapon against a taller kid.
Cassidy seems to be fairly quick.
Yeah, he's got fast hands. And he throws a lot of punches. There seems to be some pop on some of them too. He, at this age, it can be a little hit and miss with kids, because some kids get man strength or more developed muscle at a younger age than other kids. So sometimes you'll see some mismatches. We haven't seen one yet tonight, but Cassidy's landing quite a few shots though, and Heffernan took an uppercut in the inside there. Kind of looked like it hurt a little bit. Yeah. Staying composed, so good hand position. Even though he was taking a lot of shots, he had good hand position. Chin was tucked down, so he wasn't leaving himself vulnerable and giving up in there.
You were talking earlier. You mentioned, I think, one of the pros, one of the amateurs, about the fast hands and talking about. And I can't really remember what the subject we were talking about, but I thought back to Floyd Patterson.
Yeah.
Of course, former world heavyweight champion.
Yeah.
Had a group of kids that he brought to the Gardner Center in Reserve Mines at one time.
Is that right?
The Gardner. They're from New York City. And he was kind of a shy guy, and I went out to interview him. Not dropping names or anything. I'm just
no. That's interesting.
So anyway, I had asked him about fighting and who are the toughest guys or whatever, and he said, I'm going to put it this way. He said, the toughest fighter I ever fought was George Chevelle. Yeah. Which made me feel kind of proud. He's a Canadian.
Yeah, and Ali says the same thing. Ali says the exact same thing about Chevelle. Yeah.
And he said, Muhammad Ali had the fastest legs.
Yeah,
and he said, I have the fastest hands. That's what he said. So
I thought they were pretty comparable, Patterson and Ali, as far as hand speed goes, but Ali's footwork was just tremendous.
Oh, it's amazing. It was I think he was the greatest of all time, personally, but that's just my opinion. But anyway, Patterson was a great guy with the kids, and he was
nice.
He was a tremendous individual. Archie Moore spent a lot of time here as well.
I love to see the old fellas, and they had so much to share with the kids when they come back. I love to see him getting involved with the youngsters. So young Cassidy come out right off the bat, and he's doing it again here. He's trying to get that uppercut to land again. He landed a really good one in the first round. That's a well-schooled kid, really. For a new club, he's being taught some things that you don't see a lot. Oh, nice shot by Heffernan there too. Nice overhand right. I think Heffernan's got to throw a few more punches on the way in, so that when he gets in close, he doesn't take as many shots to get in there. Right now, he's trying to put his hands up and work his way in. I think if he starts a little farther from the outside and lets his hands go a little bit, he can get there quicker.
I think the coach, Snow's coach, must be telling him stay as close as you can, because that guy's got good reach.
Yeah.
And he looks like he's got some power. I mean, it's hard to think.
Yeah, it does look like he has some power.
For a 95-pound guy.
That comes back to muscle maturity. There can be so many variances at this age that when my son boxed, he was 14, but he had the strength of any man. He was only fighting at 112 pounds. And he stopped, I think, 9 out of his first 10 opponents. But as they get older, that changes. The other kids catch up in strength, and things even out. So,
is that a standing 8 count that Snow's getting?
I think he's having a possibly. I didn't see them count though.
He was having a chat with him anyway.
Yeah.
Referee. Is amateur boxing from someone from the unwashed masses as far as boxing is concerned? You base it. There's a lot of it on volume.
Yeah.
The more punches you throw, the chances of you scoring some are.
Yeah.
If you don't throw any, you're not going to score. So, if a guy's in there and you're really not sure what his abilities are, you tell the guy, listen, I know you have to protect yourself, but.
That was really pronounced in the computer scoring era, where volume meant so much, because they were just pressing buttons every time a punch landed. It didn't have to be a really hard punch. They didn't have to show a lot of ring generalship to get it there. As long as it landed, they scored the point. So I believe they went back to paper scoring more because it gets you back into the science of the sport, and they call it the sweet science for a reason. There's just so much to learn. You'll still see kids this age will throw a lot of volume, but it's nice to see it back to paper scoring where they can they get some appreciation from the judges for things other than numbers of punches landed.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how Riley Snow, or Matt Heffernan, excuse me, makes up in this round, because I think it would seem to me.
I think he's behind in the fight for sure, yeah. He's not giving up. It's great experience for him, and if he can land a couple of good shots in this round, he's got something to go home and say, yeah, but, I landed some good shots in the third round. So, and he did land a couple of really good ones in the first round too. So,
again, that's young Cassidy, Hunter Cassidy from New Brunswick, or from Dartmouth, excuse me. New Brunswick, excuse me.
He's from St. John, New Brunswick.
St. John, New Brunswick.
Yeah.
Marazzi, New Brunswick, and he's a big guy.
Yeah. And Cassidy has a fight. This is his second bout, and Heffernan's first. So those initial nerves and execution things that you may or may not bring in. I think they're going to give him an 8 count there. Oh, yeah. And in amateur boxing, you don't wait till a kid's hurt generally, especially kids this age, to give them an 8 count. You generally do it to give them a break, let them compose themselves, and so you can have a really good look at them and you can see where their eyes are and where their emotion is. So he's going to make it to the end of the fight, I think, but I believe Cassidy's going to definitely get the decision here.
Well, Cassidy was threw a lot of good punches there tonight, but Heffernan, you got to give the kid, he's in there and he's not backing down.
Absolutely, yeah, he
takes a lot of courage when someone's. I would say
you're darn right. There's actually it was young Heffernan I was talking to. I had lunch with the Ring 73 kids, and or supper I guess today, and I was talking to them and I told them about Eric Lucas from Montreal, was a former super middleweight world champion back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and he lost his first 10 amateur fights. Lost all 10 of his first 10 fights, and went on to become a world champion in the pros. So, so a kid losing a couple of amateur fights here and there is really, it's not a big setback to their development if they stay with the sport.
Well, you're learning each and every fight. It doesn't matter if
you're
winning or losing. I mean, I guess the end justifies the means. If you can learn as much as you can along the road.
Yeah.
Waiting for the judges to announce who the winner of that particular bout was. I would say it's a foregone conclusion that it would be Cassidy. And
he's a year older too. Cassidy.
The difference in the size, you really see it there.
Yeah, oh, you sure can. Yeah. Cassidy's a year older too, and has a previous bout, so he would have the advantage coming into the bout from the get-go. But
the judges' scorecards will go. And to your winner by unanimous decision. From the blue corner, Hunter Cassidy.
So Hunter Cassidy.
Always good sportsmanship in the amateurs too, mostly in the pros as well. But these kids will always shake hands and they'll probably go have a pop together after.
Coming up in the next bout, they're a little heavier, 140 pounds. Peter Jessom from the Tri-Town Boxing Club. He's 16 years old. He's got 2 bouts under his belt so far. Ethan Pratt from the Albion Club in New Glasgow. He's got 5 bouts. Again, it's the 140-pound class, so they're a little heavier.
Yeah, this is a rematch, I guess, from they fought New Glasgow a few weeks ago in May. Peter Jessom won by unanimous decision in that bout. So you can bet Ethan Pratt is looking for some payback here.
Ladies and gentlemen, please help us bring our next boxers into the arena. First of all, for the blue corner, Ethan Pratt.
This is fight night number 5 here at the Emira Center North Side. Dave LeBlanc along with Aubrey McLeod, and sponsored by Tri-Town Boxing and Seaside Communications. Amateur boxing at its best. A couple of the bouts tonight, you had guys with their first bouts and fun bouts and really entertaining. The last bout was the last 2 bouts were especially interesting. And now we're in a little heavier class. Peter Jessom up against Ethan Pratt.
Jessom's 16 years old, Pratt's 14. So I think the age difference makes up for the experience difference, where Pratt has 5 bouts and Jessom has only 2. So.
Ladies and gentlemen, our 5th bout of the evening is in the 140-pound classification. 3 rounds of boxing.
So his amateurs, when you mentioned that he fought earlier this year in Glasgow, what's the frequency between the times that once you finish tonight? Like, when can you fight again?
They can fight again tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, in the amateurs, unless there's always the doctor will always make a decision at the end of the bout. But usually you have to if you get knocked down or you get hurt during the fight, you'll probably get a 30-day suspension minimum. But if nobody gets hurt, nobody's really shook up or rocked, you can box the next day.
So if you're fighting in a tournament, you really got to be in shape. You're fighting for a couple of bouts, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and up until not that many years ago, kids could fight 2 or 3 times a day. They usually, I haven't heard of it happening in a long time, but I've been at tournaments where they did fight a few times in one day.
Can you imagine the early days when you think about it, and James Jeffries and all those guys, 100 and some rounds?
Yeah.
Gee,
Yeah, they fought until somebody couldn't fight anymore.
Oh,
you know.
God, when you think about it, it was so, well, it was barbaric for one thing, but I guess that was the way it was in those days.
I can't imagine how their brains were affected later in life. Some of these guys, the number of rounds they would have done. And they were small horsehair gloves back then too, and horsehair is not particularly soft.
You were getting poked, you were getting it. So
Yeah.
Peter Jessom in the red corner, in the blue corner, Ethan Pratt. Again in the 140-pound class. These guys are a little more experienced than what we've seen so far this evening.
Yeah, Pratt's looking to get some payback. He just landed a couple good shots there. Jessom's got the reach advantage and seems to be pretty efficient with that jab. Well polished kids for just a few fights each.
Yeah, you can see that the way they move in the ring.
Absolutely. And Jessom trains with some pretty experienced boxers, and in his gym, Josh Prince. I'm just watching him. He looks so much like Josh's style. He's picked up a lot from him, that's for sure. These boys are letting her go now.
Jessom, they're a good flurry of punches there.
Yeah, he had him in the corner. I mean, Pratt was swinging back, but I think Jessom got the better of that exchange for sure. Nice 1-2, and then followed by a hook. Pratt's reaching a little bit from the outside, and that can get him in trouble against a taller guy like that. You gotta throw 2 or 3 jabs on the way in and keep them feet moving. You gotta figure out the range with that jab. If you throw a 1-2 from the outside against a taller guy, often he just has to pull his head back a little bit, and the counter punch is right there for him. Crowd gave a big ooh that time, but I think that mostly landed on the shoulder. That was a close round.
In amateur boxing, like these guys here tonight, you pretty well, at least in my opinion, that very few of them are going to the body. They're pretty much, most of them headhunters. I mean, in terms of
often it's a pretty hard thing to get kids to go to the body more. There's so much more reaction when they land a shot to the head, especially when the head snaps back and stuff. I find kids, they tend to gravitate to what gives them that instant feedback, that instant gratification. So it can be hard. I've trained some kids that were, love to go to the body, but especially taller guys usually just like to pop that jab upstairs. And the thing about body work, it's great point scoring and stuff like that. In the pros, it's used to help take the legs away a guy, and it takes 4 or 5 rounds of going to the body to slow a guy's legs down, so you don't really have that much time in the amateurs to do it. And they get shied away a little bit sometimes because judges don't see those punches as well. So, if you go in and land 30 body shots in a fight and your opponent lands 20 head shots, he's likely to get the decision.
Peter Jessamine again in the red corner. And in the blue corner, it's Ethan Pratt from the Albion Club in New Glasgow.
Well, Pratt just went to the body with a couple of right hands there. Ooh, big left hook. Jessum's got some pop on his punches. Hand speed and a bit of power there by the looks of it. He just went to the liver with the left hook.
I'm sure he's feeding off the crowd as well.
Yeah, I think he is. He gets a little undisciplined and wild with his punches once he thinks he's got his opponent hurt a little bit, but he's going to get the 8 count. It's like a shark smelling blood in the water. I think one of them left hooks about 20 seconds ago kind of shook him up a little bit. I don't think he was terribly hurt, but Jessamine went after him hard after that.
Well, I'm sure if I was a parent here watching the thing, I'd really be happy that the referee would step in.
Yes.
And always keeping, because the safety of your child is the most important thing.
Yeah, as a former boxing parent myself, it always was. It was nice to know that they were really looking out for the kids' safety and trying to make sure that things get stopped before they get hurt rather than wait until they get hurt. Brad's a good referee too. He's so experienced in the fight game. Was a national team fighter when he boxed, and has been coaching for many years, and now he's been refereeing for quite a few years. So he's not going to let anyone get hurt. I mean, there's always a chance that a kid can go from doing well to taking a big shot that might put him on his keister, but Brad's not going to let anyone get beat up unnecessarily.
In the times that I've done these broadcasts, I haven't seen too many guys knocked down.
No,
not in amateur boxing.
Not too much. No, it's. It happens from time to time. I mean, I've seen some knockouts. I've seen a lot of knockdowns, but there's a lot of shows you'll get through a whole show without seeing a single knockdown. And for some fans, maybe that takes something away from it. You got to remember, most of these are kids. You don't want to see a kid getting his molecules rattled around like that too much, and that's why they take so much care in making sure that they try to stop fights when they're too one-sided.
Well, the thing that I enjoy about this the most, again, it's the safety factor. You know, when I'm watching this, I pretty well take for granted that the kids their welfare is upmost in the minds of everybody's involved in the staging of these particular bouts. And the kids are in there, and they're giving it everything they've got for the time that they're in there, and that's what I enjoy about it the most. You know, it's an honest boxing match.
Most honest sport in the world, if you ask me. It's you can't blame it on a teammate. You're not going to blame it on the judge or the coach or the referee or the judges. Hopefully, most amateurs are taught not to. So, and most of them are very sportsmanlike. Even if, wow, what a right hand!
He took that one right on the button. The second.
I think it probably made a bigger noise than it felt like. He didn't seem like he was rocked by it, but it was a good shot. So one more standing 8 in the fight will be over. And Peter Jessamine, I think, knows that if there's another 8 count, then it'll be done. So he's looking to land a big one again there, just like he just did with that overhand right.
You really see his confidence in this particular bet.
Yeah, he was landing most of his shots with the left hook early. There he goes back to the left hook again.
Peter Jessamine in the red. Fighting out of the Tri-Town Boxing Club, the host for this event here tonight, in the Emera Center North Side. Against Ethan Pratt from across the causeway in New Glasgow.
Jessamine staying very busy. He's not giving Pratt a chance to get anything off. He seems to have left the power alone for now, and he just seems to be overwhelming him with volume.
Well, Pratt seems to be running out of gas.
Yeah, and running out of confidence too, I would say, yeah.
Jessamine in the red, Pratt in the blue. We're coming to the end of this particular bout. 10 seconds left.
Well, Pratt's giving everything he's got at the end there. That's it's good to see. He wants to make sure he leaves knowing he did everything he could.
Well, like you said earlier, you don't want to go back to the corner thinking you left a lot of it.
Yeah.
You want to leave everything in the ring. You don't want to take it back to the dressing room with you.
100%. I think it's a pretty safe bet that Peter Jessam won this one, as well as they fought previously, and Jessam won that time as well. So I think it's a pretty safe bet to say he's got the decision again. Good-looking young fighter. This is only his third fight. He's he changes elevations well. He's using angles. He understands range pretty well. So I think he's got a pretty bright future. And both of these guys, Pratt looks like a pretty skilled fighter too. Well-schooled kid.
I think Jessam's just a bit taller. I don't think they gave up a lot in size to each other. I think
a little longer in the arms. Yeah. I think the age difference has some impact on it too. 16 to 14, he's likely to be a little bit stronger, a little more muscle maturity. So it can be tough. But I mean, Pratt can walk away, knowing that he's in the ring with 16-year-olds and holding his own. So always got to find the positive spin, especially as a coach when you're talking to the kids after the bout.
The next match coming up, we'll have Haiti McPhee from Ring 73 up against Dakota Kenny from St. John, New Brunswick.
Let's give both these gentlemen a nice round of applause. Great fight, gentlemen.
Yeah, the crowd enjoyed this one. That was a good match.
The fans got to see some older kids with a little more strength, letting their hands go a little bit more too. So,
and also the monster of the night. My vote doesn't count, but I'd say they're close with you, North Sydney.
I agree with Blake, the announcer there. He's saying that it's definitely a fight of the night contender right there.
We go to the judges' scorecards. And to your winner, by unanimous decision. From the red corner, Peter!
So unanimous decision for Peter Jessam.
Well deserved.
So that's the second unanimous decision for Peter over Pratt. And again, it was a good match. Coming up is the sixth match of the evening. Again, Haiti McPhee from Ring 73 in Glace Spades, 100-pound class. He is 11 years old.
They got to talk to him about something.
I think we have a special presentation to Peter Jessam.
Looks like they're giving young Peter something.
They get to take their hot shots at him.
They have all three of his coaches in the ring too, so 4 of his coaches.
Boxing progress throughout the year, and we give a most improved boxer award every year. As you guys can see, Peter Jessam is very improved, and he's most improved this year. Peter, congratulations.
Well, that's a nice.
Great award, well said.
Yeah. His coaching staff giving him the most improved boxer award.
I can see Peter bring home a gold medal at next year's Nationals.
Yeah.
Let's hear it for Peter Jessam.
Tri-Town Club, they got a great club over here. Really good coaches, very dedicated. They keep the numbers down in the gym. They don't just bring in as many kids as show up at the door, so that they have time to spend as much one-on-one time with every kid that's there as they can. So, and these guys, I know they put a tremendous amount of time into the kids. Young, I say young Alton McKinnon. I say young because he had a couple of fights himself recently at 40 or 41 years old. But Alton McKinnon will take them running stairs and not just show up at the gym to coach, but he shows up and takes them out running at times and does things like that with them. So these kids from Tri-Town are always in shape. They got enough really good fighters and really good coaches here for all the other kids to learn from. So I wouldn't take anybody from this gym lightly.
Ladies and gentlemen, please help us bring the boxer in for the red corner. Hayden McPhee.
We're back down to the 100-pounders. 2 11-year-olds here. A little more experience, so Dakota Kennedy from St. John has 4 bouts. I don't know how many Hayden has, but you'll see a little more polish on these kids, I would imagine, than some of the earlier bouts. But you'll still see just as much courage and heart as the other kids.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next bout of the evening is the 100-pound.
This is going to be our last bout for this edition of Fight Night number 5. We'll be back, of course, a little bit later on with the second edition of Fight Night number 5 here on Seaside Communications. But again, this is our last bout for this edition of the program. So Dakota Kenny from New Brunswick, again, as Aubrey mentioned, against Haiti McPhee from Ring 73 in Glace Bay.
This boxer is from Glace Bay. He trains at Ring 73 in Glace Bay, Nova Scotia. Boxing fans, give it up for Hayden McPhee. And our referee in charge of the vote after the bell is Aaron McGregor.
We'll bring him to the center of the ring, and we'll get this one underway. Imagine these young guys 2 feet off that last match, because it was really a very competitive.
Yeah, I bet they did. If they were standing out in the wings watching, sometimes coaches will keep them in the dressing room till the very last minute, just so they can focus a little bit more. But I always like letting the kids watch as many fights as they can because you learn so much.
McPhee's a southpaw in the red corner.
Yeah.
What does the guy in the blue corner know? What's the biggest thing you have to worry about when you're fighting a left-hander?
Well, you're not used to seeing that straight left hand come right down the pipe. Usually you're looking for on the right side. So you kind of you tend to, especially when you're a beginner, you angle your body a little bit differently. Key things to remember for kids when they're boxing against a southpaw, and for both fighters, is trying to, because they're both lead feet are on the same side. So your lead foot, you're trying to keep it to the outside of your opponents, because if you're inside, it's really hard to land your power shot because you're twisting your whole body around and almost fighting your whole body to get that punch through. So if you're the right-handed kid and your foot's inside of their lead foot, you almost got to turn yourself around to land that right hand. And your left hook is somewhat taken away from you too. So there's always a battle to see who can keep that outside foot when it's orthodox against a southpaw.
Well, the left-hander's throwing a little leather here.
You see how that straight left hand, that last one just landed right down the pipe? It's a little different look for them, and it's nice for them at this age to get in there with as many southpaws as they can, because sometimes, I know in the pros, sometimes you'll go years without fighting a southpaw. And then when you do, you have that big adjustment.
Is it an advantage for the guy that can do both, if he can fight both ways?
There is. The issue is I don't like too many kids doing it, because most people can't. You're always giving something up when you turn the other way. I train a pro fighter, Brandon L. Jack Brewer. He's a tremendous fighter. He's 22-0. He switches up and fights both ways, southpaw and orthodox. Mid-round, he'll do a whole round one way, and he's become very educated in how to do it. But there was definitely a defensive liability switching southpaw for him when he had less experience. The reason he did is because he fought a lot of his amateur bouts strictly as southpaw, even though he's right-handed. And then when I started coaching him his last couple amateur bouts and then right through his pro career, I started working. I said, I want to work back orthodox with you. I'm not telling you have to change, but he was defensively better right away in his natural stance as a right-handed fighting as an orthodox fighter. So we spent a lot of time working on that. So you're usually giving up something. You're giving up power, you're giving up defense, you're giving up footwork. But it does play a little bit of a game with your opponent's mind and what they're seeing. So there's advantages, but you have to choose wisely when you do it.
Again, in the blue corner, it's Dakota Kenny from New Brunswick. And Haiti McPhee from Ring 73 in the red corner. He's a southpaw, left-hander.
see Dakota's looking at him a little bit strange sometimes, so I don't think he's been in there with a southpaw before. Now he's starting to try to throw that straight right hand, and that's usually, they call it the southpaw kryptonite, is straight right lead. And it can be. Southpaws do get used to seeing that punch coming a lot because every orthodox fighter out there is told to throw it a lot against the southpaw.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Kyle Clark was a very successful amateur boxer. He was a left-hander.
He's left-handed, but he fought orthodox.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Which gave his left hook was a tremendous amount of power. Kyle, terrific fighter, so well schooled, hard worker, and always in tremendous condition. He's a police officer in New Glasgow now, and still in great shape. Still does his big 10-mile runs and all that stuff. And Kyle had thought about turning pro for a little while there, and he's getting up there in years, but between coaching the kids and things like that, he decided that the coaching was more for him. He would have made a very good pro. He was a tremendous amateur national team for I'm not sure how many years, 2-time Canadian champion. Just another Cape Breton success story with some of the other folks. And Brad Ross, who's here tonight's another one, and quite a few others.
Well, anyone, that doesn't matter what their sport is, but especially in the sport of boxing, because it's such an individual sport. And I mean, he spent a lot of time alone training, whether it's doing the road work, right, before you even get into the gym. And that it's, you got to give these athletes, especially the ones that are even spend a lot of time getting there, is that you have to give them a lot of credit, because not only what it costs from an expense point of view, just what it takes out of your body and your life.
And we're seeing in Cape Breton now, we're seeing some pro boxing happening here now. A lot of these kids, I'm sure, probably just about every kid from every boxing club around the area go to the pro shows, and they get to see that, because young Ryan Rosicki's, just a tremendous fighter, 6-0 now, incredibly powerful. I think he's the only Cape Bretoner right now fighting pro. But they get to see that even though we're from a small area, we can compete with the best in the world out there. So it gives every kid confidence when they see other older Cape Breton fighters and Nova Scotia fighters doing well.
Well, this third round, Dakota Kenny seemed to come up with a little bit of he's trying to make up some.
Yeah, he seemed to be trying to make up ground. You're
points,
right.
Yeah. What's his name? Has a little bit of poise to him. McPhee.
It seems to have some patience, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's trying to pick his shots. Now this I think is his 5th bout, so even at that age, in 5th bout is usually kind of rare for them to be that patient. So good on him.
To me, that says a lot about his coaching.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Some guys just have that ability anyway. No matter what they do, he can be building something. Some guys just got the patience of Job, and he seems to have that kind of patience in the ring.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. No, he's at the Ring 73. Such a good club down there that these kids are learning from some really good coaches, learning from some good fighters in the gym, and they get to see some of the older guys, and they've got some pretty good prospects in their later teens and 20s too. So. I'm sure these kids, this new club in St. John, I'm sure these kids get out. There's 2 other clubs in the area there. There's St. John Golden Gloves Boxing and KV Boxing and Quispamsis.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he gets these kids out sparring at the other gyms, so they're not all new at the same time, trying to learn everything at the same time. It's obvious from watching them. He's brought some polished kids for such low experience.
Okay, so we've got the medal presentations here. Wait for the score.
Who you got winning that one?
I'd pick the red corner. I think Snow had the advantage.
I think so. In a close fight, I think he those straight left hands that he landed in the first 2 rounds, especially, I think stole those rounds pretty handily.
Yeah, I thought the 3rd round was fairly even.
Yeah.
But, I thought the first 2 rounds it was pretty well all. I would have given the advantage to Haiti McPhee, but. There might be some. I'm not too. I wouldn't know the technical side of boxing, but I'm as far as the scoring. But
ladies and gentlemen, we have the official announcement for our 6th bout of the evening. Once again, we go to the judges' scorecards. Enter your winner by split decision.
Split decision.
From our red corner,
Well, we thought he won in a close fight, and that's exactly what the judges saw too. So every fight so far, the judges, or every fight tonight, the judges seem to get it right on. So nice to see.
Well, Aubrey, that's the first 6 bouts are in the books, and once again, it's been a great pleasure, and we'll see you in our next program on Fight Night number 5 when we return.
Pleasure for me too, Dave. Thanks very much.
Dave LeBlanc along with Aubrey McLeod here at Fight Night number 5, sponsored by Tri-Town Boxing Club and Seaside Communications. We will return in the next edition.